Republicans get their chance to respond immediately after the State of the Union address. That will be handled by House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan. Joining us now, House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, with us to tell us what Republicans are looking for tonight. Good evening, Mr. Leader.
Brett, good to be with you.
You know, most State of the Union addresses are really not that memorable when you look back. After they're delivered, they're important, but they're not that memorable. What are Republicans, and the leadership in particular, looking for tonight and hoping to see and hear?
First of all, Brett, I think that we'll be listening to hear whether the president heard the electorate on November of last year, that frankly it's time for Washington to change its ways, that we got to stop spending money we don't have and beginning to rein in the size of government. You know, a lot of what we're hearing come out of the White House today has been very much focused on this agenda of continuing to invest while we attempt to cut spending. You know, our majority in Congress has off to a good start, and we've been about cut and grow. We believe we ought to cut spending so we let the private sector grow. And I'm not quite following, Brett, how the president feels that we ought to try and cut spending while we attempt to invest or spend some more from Washington.
Well, what about specific cuts from the GOP side? Why not yet hearing the specifics? I know you want the 2008 levels, and you passed the legislation to get back to the spending levels of 2008. But what about specific cuts? Why not a list? Here's what we're looking for.
Well, what we did today, Brett, is we put a resolution on the floor which sets spending levels back down to 2008 or less. And the important piece is or less. You know, we believe we are speaking on behalf of the American people when we say we've got to look for ways to do more with less and look for ways to cut spending. And that has to be the first step taken if we're going to see this economy grow again, if we're going to see people, entrepreneurs, small business folks, willing to get back into the market to earn their success. That's what it's about. So when you say where are the specifics, I announced today that the week of February 14th, we're going to have on the floor of the U.S. House the spending plan for the rest of the year. That's what will be at 2008 levels or less.
The continuing resolution.
And right, and that's because we didn't have a budget, we didn't have an appropriations package that would take care of the remainder of the year. And what we're saying is now's the time to start cutting. And there are hundreds of programs, Brett. And our committees and our Appropriations Committee is hard at work already, identifying programs like we have on the floor this week when you talk about the Presidential Election Fund. That's a $615 million program. There are going to be hundreds of programs like that we're going to have to cut in order to reach our levels of cutting.
Just moments ago, we just received some of the excerpts from the President's speech. You talked about the word investment. Take a listen to this excerpt. Half a century ago, when the Soviets beat us into space with the launch of a satellite called Sputnik, we had no idea how we'd beat them to the moon. The science wasn't there yet. NASA didn't even exist. But after investing in better research and education, we didn't just surpass the Soviets, we unleashed a wave of innovation that created new industries and millions of new jobs. This is our generation's Sputnik moment, the president will say, according to the White House. That's what they're saying the investment word means. Republicans, you have a different take on it.
You know, Brett, the president's always been a great orator, and I'm sure tonight we're going to hear some great words. But where we are is where I think the American people are. Washington is really spent enough already. You know, the private sector in this country really is the engine for innovation and job creation. And that's where we've seen all the hesitancy and the lack of growth, is because Washington has continued to move into areas where people just sense it ought not be. And we're going to try and roll back that regulation environment that is so burdensome to people and allow the private sector, small businesses, to grow again.
Traditionally, we just have one Republican response. Tonight, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann will deliver what's being called the Tea Party caucus response. What's your reaction to that? Does it send a different signal that there are two Republican responses?
You know, Brett, there's one official Republican response, and that's our budget chairman, Paul Ryan, is going to deliver that. Michelle Bachmann is giving her response, and I bet, Brett, there's going to be, 533 other members of the body that are going to have their say. I mean, all members can and will opine on their beliefs on behalf of their constituents, whether senators or members of the House, as to the direction we ought to take in response to where the president's headed.
But did anyone ever say, Congresswoman, maybe this isn't a great idea, maybe we should put one message together and just go out with that?
I bet when we listen to the message that Michelle Bachmann delivers and that which comes from the official response, there's going to be a lot in common. Because what the electorate said last November was, stop spending the money we don't have. Let's get back on a path where people can find that opportunity, give them a chance to seize responsibility so they can earn success.
Last thing, how big a deal is this seating? Republicans, Democrats sitting together. You asked Nancy Pelosi to sit with you. She already had a date, I guess.
Whatever. Listen, I've always said I'll sit with whoever will sit with me, and I'm actually going to sit with my friend and neighbor, Bobby Scott, the Democratic congressman who actually represents a portion of my hometown in Richmond.
Big deal?
Absolutely. Listen, we're all about, listen, it's symbolic. Obviously, the Congress and members have been through, a very tragic experience when one of our colleagues has been so critically wounded and others killed in what we believe is very sacred in America, which is the right for us to go and assemble with our constituents. So I do think it's appropriate for us, when the president comes to Capitol Hill, always a very momentous occasion for us to join together and try and put the best foot forward to see if we can achieve some results for the American people.
Mr. Leader, thank you very much.
Thank you.